Welcome to the Rosary Team Podcast. Today, we are embarking on a really fascinating deep dive. We're going to trace the dramatic, powerful evolution of Christian iconography.
It's an incredible story. We're talking about how the face of faith has literally changed over 2,000 years.
And when we say iconography, what do we really mean? It's more than just religious pictures, right?
Oh, absolutely. At its core, iconography is the study of all the subjects, themes, and symbols, even the allegorical meanings that are embedded in the art.
So it's a visual language.
It's the visual vocabulary. It's how core theological concepts and moral values were communicated, especially to people who, couldn't read. It was a way to reflect spiritually.
Our mission today, then, is to follow that language. We'll start with those earliest sort of secret symbols in the Roman Empire and then move through the grand Imperial mosaics.
All the way up to the great theological splits and even how the tradition is adapting with modern materials today. It's a living, breathing art form.
So to get started, we have to go back to the beginning, the 2nd to the 4th centuries. What was the world like for Christians then?
Well, you have to remember the context. Christianity was a minority religion, and it faced pretty severe persecution at times. This is all before Constantine's decree in 313 AD.
That secrecy is so important. It meant the art had to be symbolic, hidden away in places like the Catacombs under Rome.
Exactly. It demanded a coded language, something that wouldn't immediately flag believers to the Roman authorities.
And the first symbols were, incredibly simple.
They were beautifully elegant. You see things like a simple drawing of a fish. The Greek letters for fish, ICHTHYS, spell out an acrostic for Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior.
A perfect code.
A perfect code. Or you see bread and wine, which immediately brings to mind the Eucharist.
What's interesting is what you don't see. There are no graphic depictions of the crucifixion in these early centuries. Why avoid the central event of the faith?
That's such a crucial point. It wasn't just about being discreet, it was theological. Crucifixion was a brutal public spectacle used by the Romans.
A tool of imperial terror.
Precisely. Early Christians didn't want to visually associate their Lord with that kind of humiliation. Instead, they focused on the promise of salvation, on hope.
And to do that, they often adapted things they already knew. This brings us to the first figural images of Christ.
Right. They didn't invent entirely new art forms. They repurposed familiar pagan prototypes. The earliest Christ is often shown as the Good Shepherd.
Which was a common image in the classical world.
Absolutely. It's a direct borrowing from figures like Apollo or Orpheus. He's shown as a beardless Hellenistic Roman youth carrying a lamb. It drew on powerful imagery from the Psalms.
So it's almost like a visual Trojan horse, using a familiar image to deliver a new sacred message.
That's a great way to put it. And this leads to what we call typological scenes, using Old Testament events as prefigurations of Christ's resurrection.
Instead of showing it directly.
Exactly. So you see Jonah, who was swallowed by the great fish and came out after 3 days, a perfect parallel for the resurrection.
Or Daniel in the lion's den.
Or Daniel, or the 3 Hebrews in the fiery furnace. All these scenes were visual testimony that God provides salvation. They linked the old covenant to the new.
Okay, so let's jump forward to the huge historical pivot. After 313 AD, Constantine's decree changes everything.
The change was monumental. You can't overstate it. Suddenly, Christianity moves out of the catacombs and into public basilica.
Imperial sponsorship.
Right, which brings wealth and public visibility. Christian art now had to educate a huge, rapidly growing population of converts.
It's such a leap. From a tiny hidden fish symbol to filling an entire basilica ceiling with, glittering gold mosaics, the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome is a prime example.
And that new scale demanded a new style. The old classical focus on naturalism, on anatomical correctness, it starts to fade away.
And in its place.
The new ideal wasn't physical beauty, it was spiritual feeling. So you get this new, more abstract, and I think more transcendent aesthetic.
Yeah, so how did that communicate transcendence to the masses?
The figures became types, not individuals. The compositions became flattened, more symbolic. This is the emergence of what's called the hieratic style.
Hieratic, meaning formal and stylized.
Formal, stylized, rigid. It's meant to convey an eternal spiritual presence, not realistic movement. And this is when you start seeing those figures with the large, staring eyes.
The windows of the soul.
Exactly. Gazing right at you, the viewer, demanding contemplation.
This is where the story gets incredibly specific. because the image of Christ himself goes through this radical change around the 5th and 6th centuries.
A complete transformation. He moves from that beardless youth to the bearded Semitic true likeness we all recognize today.
The moderate beard, the shoulder-length hair parted in the middle.
That rigid front-facing posture. This image becomes the standard for the next 1,500 years, and it was believed to come not from an artist's mind, but from a mysterious Eastern icon.
The Image of Edessa. And this is where the connection to the Shroud of Turin comes in.
Yes. The Edessa image was known as an achyropietos.
Which means not made with human hands.
Precisely. And the leading theory is that the shroud was the image of Edessa, but it was kept folded. There's an obscure word in the old documents, tetradiplon.
Doubled in four.
Doubled in four. And if you make 3 simple width-wide folds in the Shroud of Turin, you get a 4-layered cloth showing only the face.
Which matches the earliest descriptions of the Edessa icon.
It matches them perfectly, just the face, often seen through a circular opening in its case.
That is just staggering.
Yeah.
But what's the visual evidence? How do we know that image became the template?
Well, researchers identified about 20 facial peculiarities on the shroud's face. They're called the Vignon markings. Things like asymmetric eyebrows, an elongated nose.
And those markings start appearing in the art.
They appear consistently in these 6th century portraits. If you overlay the shroud face onto the famous Pantocrator icon from St. Catherine's Monastery, for example, there are hundreds of points of alignment.
So it suggests a single, powerful physical model was used as the standard across the Christian world.
The implication is profound. The enduring true likeness of Christ seems to originate not from artistic invention, but from what was believed to be an actual miraculous imprint.
What a powerful idea, that the face of Christ in art came from a miraculous source, and that enduring tradition is why these images are still so vital for devotional life.
Absolutely. And if you're looking to bring some of this incredible living tradition into your own home for spiritual reflection or just to appreciate the art history,
we really encourage you to visit rosaryteam.com. You can explore their wide variety of Christian art for your walls. They have so many collections, from Axios icons, traditional Eastern, to ceramic tile icons, wood plaque icons, and pearl premium paper prints.
There's really something for everyone.
So head over to rosaryteam.com to acquire your own piece of this visual history.
Now, moving into the Western tradition, while the East was codifying that spiritual image, the Middle Ages in the West, say from the 5th to the 15th centuries, had a different focus.
Art became the main educational tool. The focus was on clear, narrative storytelling.
Exactly. We see a heavy concentration on key biblical stories, the Nativity, the Annunciation, and of course the crucifixion.
Which becomes a central, highly stylized theme. You see all those powerful symbols. The crown of thorns, the spear.
And the skull and bones at the foot of the cross. That represents Golgotha, the place of the skull, believed to be Adam's burial site. It ties Christ's sacrifice directly to redeeming original sin.
Then comes another monumental shift. The Renaissance.
Yeah.
The 14th to the 17th centuries. Humanism, classical art. It changes everything.
The pendulum swings dramatically back toward realism. Artists are using scientific perspective, trying to accurately render the natural world and the human body.
And this was a theological shift as much as an artistic one, right?
Mhm.
How did realism change the relationship between the viewer and the divine?
It made the divine accessible. By using linear perspective, the artist literally pulls you into the scene. Christ and the Madonna are no longer distant symbolic figures.
They become relatable humans.
Relatable, anatomically correct human figures. It grounds the incarnation in a tangible reality. Nativity scenes get realistic landscapes, and the Madonna and Child are often in these balanced, harmonious, geometric compositions.
So if the Renaissance was about harmony, the Baroque period that followed in the 17th and 18th centuries was all about drama.
Oh, completely. The emotional intensity just skyrockets. The Baroque style is ornate, decorative, and it's designed to inspire awe, to stir your soul.
And the key technique for that was chiaroscuro.
The dramatic contrast between intense light and deep shadow, it creates depth, urgency, and a real theatrical effect. The sacred scene becomes a stage play.
You see it in the martyrdoms of saints or those incredibly intense images of the Passion, like Ecce Homo.
Exactly. The West had moved from symbol to scientific realism and now to overwhelming human emotion.
But while the West was chasing realism and emotion, the East was fighting a desperate theological war over the very nature of the image itself.
The iconoclastic controversy. A seismic event in the 7th century that led to the wholesale destruction of icons. The debate was about whether an icon was incarnational.
Incarnational. What does that mean in this context?
Proponents argued that since God took on physical matter in Christ, that meant matter could be sanctified and used to represent God's presence. The image was holy because of its subject.
But the iconoclasts, the opponents, saw it as idolatry.
Right, a violation of the commandment against graven images. It wasn't just about art style, it was about whether you could represent God in matter at all.
So how was it resolved?
The Second Council of Nicaea in the 9th century affirmed the use of icons, but it drew a critical, permanent distinction thanks to thinkers like St. John of Damascus.
And what was that distinction?
It's the difference between worship, which is for God alone, and veneration, which is honoring the person represented by the physical icon.
And this resolution solidifies the split between East and West.
It does. The Roman Church continues to favor statuary and realistic painting, while the Eastern Church formalizes that flattened, symbolic style of the Orthodox icon that we still see today.
And in that Eastern style, that original 6th century true likeness really endures. It rejects Western realism.
Completely. The Orthodox iconographer uses that flattened, inverted perspective to portray a divine reality, a visual portal into eternity. The goal is to move you away from the physical world.
And interestingly, in the modern era, there's been a real resurgence of interest in these traditional styles.
Yes, a move away from the 19th century Western realism that had crept in. You have figures like Photios Kontoglou in Greece, urging a return to the Constantinopolitan style.
And in Russia?
Farhar Zinon, who re-energized modern Russian iconography by synthesizing different schools with this powerful simplicity and transcendence.
It just proves that this is a living, changing tradition. It's constantly serving believers, incorporating new media wood, ceramic paper prints, while maintaining that ancient, powerful visual vocabulary.
It's an incredible journey we've taken. From secret symbols scratched on a catacomb wall to the drama of the Baroque and the timelessness of the Eastern icon.
This visual language has been the central means for spiritual expression for millennia, and it's not stopping, which brings up a final thought for you, the listener. As new media like virtual and augmented reality emerge, how might this traditional iconography be recontextualized? How can it maintain its deep connection to all this symbolism and meaning? The future of sacred art will be fascinating to watch.
It's a fascinating thought experiment. The message always has to be paramount.
Absolutely. And this entire tradition, the history, the symbolism, the devotion, is something you can explore further. You can bring a piece of it into your home by visiting rosaryteam.com.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the evolution of Christian iconography.
And thank you for tuning into the Rosary Team Podcast.